Okay, so we'll resume our lecture. We were talking about how modeling is very important and how we are underestimating the need for disaggregated socioeconomic data for enhancing the transportation systems. So let's go back to a little bit about the history of transportation. Uh, so civilization all over the world has needed constant migration from one place to another. So transportation has played a very vital role in evolution of civilization or cities in context all over the world. So there are different issues related to your transportation networks, which different characteristics related to economic, cultural inclinations that have affected transportation or way of traveling of different, uh, you can say, cultural groups. So people have been traveling for business, professional, cultural, or private reasons. So these reasons have been evolving with time. And then uh, due to the latest technological advancements, different like this culture of new apps and everything, Uber and Kareem and this kind of apps, they have kind of revolutionized transportation systems. And how they will be evolving in the near future always remains a big question for the traffic engineers and planners. That how will we continue, depending on the technological and people needs, uh, how people will travel in the future. For example, let's talk about pandemic. So how did the pandemic affect your travel behaviors? So it was unprecedented event that might not have been incorporated in our transportation models or simulations. So uncertainty is always there because future is sometimes unpredictable. In the context of like you might have heard the proverb that all roads lead to Rome. So because Rome was the epicenter of um, Roman civilization and the Greek civilizations, so that have played a very vital role that people have originated or they used to travel to Rome. So if you see the different maps all over the in the Europe, so all roads are basically really leading towards Rome. So then there was some kind of we were talking about land travel now. Sea or waterways have emerged a very vital part in the Roman Empire. The people start traveling with ships, and that evolved into different centuries all over the world. Their transportation networks seem to play a very vital role in connecting different civilizations all over the world. These are another routes which have shown that regional transportation or global transportation systems have also improved or have also grown over with time. So this is another revolution's development. You don't need to learn the dates or the years that people migrate from Africa according to history or anthropology that we were once from Africa continent and we migrated from Africa to Australia and Americans and Europe, Asians. Then in the agricultural era of revolution, we transferred into animal power, transportation, road canals, everything. So all of these evolutions or eras, they also have a very strong correlation with the urban planning or built up environment. So transportation, as soon as transportation has been evolving, so has the city size. So depending upon the way of traveling, the speed of travel, time taken to travel, and quality of travel, with time it has enhanced. And when it has enhanced, so has the city size. So city or urban planning has been very much, I could say, interrelated or independent, interlinked with each other. So in the modern era, we started building traveling with ships, railways, air travel, and quite recently, now space travel. Now these are the different means of transportation for industrial, and depending on the travel distances and the speeds, your travel transportation system has evolved. So what about technological advancement that pipelines introduced in America first? Railroad was opened. Automobile was first time produced back in 1886. So first time people flew in 1903. Electric locomotives engines were introduced. Uh, this Lindbergh, I think, was called what's ship? Airship, yeah. So it flew in Atlantic in 1927. Diesel introduced commercial jets back in 58, and we landed the moon in 69. So different evolution, technological advancements have been happening in transportation systems. So how it is affecting your transportation system. So what is transportation? Basically, anyone who can like just give a explanation. What is transportation? What does it mean? Anyone? Okay. Basically, movement of goods and people. And as of now, because of the digital revolution, I would people have also included that information should be also part of transportation. So movement of goods, people, and information, digital information, is a part of transportation. So we will be as in the coming lecture, I will be only focusing on people, movement of passengers. Although logistics or movement of goods is a very vital component in uh, transportation system, that lot of logistical goods have been movement, but I will not be talking about it because most of the logistical movements are concerned with the sea travel or air travel, and sometimes this regional at regional level movement of different goods. So I will not focus on logistical support, logistics, and the movement of goods, but we will talk about movement of people from one place to another. So all over the world, it has been noted in the research that transportation after I think food or oh, sorry after housing is the biggest expense faced by the American households. Okay, why? What about you people? Have you? Uh, what is your biggest expense? I would suggest after this living rents or like say eating. What is your biggest expense? Shopping? Anyone? What is your biggest expense?
Car petrol.
Yes. So travel expenses is the after these uh, basic needs, transport expenses are the biggest expenses, and I think it might be true for Pakistan as well. But of course, this has been proven by the research in Australia, in America. So, what about transportation? How this is an analogy in which Sisyphus was in the I think Greek civilization. He was punished to take a rock all over the top of the mountain, and it rolled back when it reached the near top. So it's a long process, cumbersome process, in which you need effort to move how much volume of people you need to move from one place to another, what is the distance and what is the friction level. So all of this plays a role, very vital role in your designing transportation systems. So depending upon the volume, everything will, and the distance to be traveled, effort by effort, I mean, let's say technology, how much technology is there, how much effortless we can move from one place to another, what is the distance we need to move, and the volume of movement that will influence your transportation systems. And other some driving factors are we have been talking about technologies, resources, some issues of economic development, like we will be focusing on the socio-economic issues of economic development, quality of life, and quite recently this environmental sustainability and climate change, because transportation has emerged as one of the key emitters of carbon emissions, I should say, uh, contributed to the carbon emissions. Transportation systems plays a very vital role. So it has now become a very important part in the climate change debate as well. And then we can just move on and we can talk about how how are institutions regulating this transportation system, and do the organization capacities have these capacities to manage this transportation or traffic in the future. So all of this can influence your transportation systems.
सर आपकी आवाज बहुत रुक रुक के आ रही है.
Okay, so sorry for the disturbance. Okay, yes, Rizwan, you were saying something?
वही मैं कह रहा हूँ, आवाज आपकी बहुत रुक रुक के आ रही थी, चीज समझ में
Now clear? Clear हुई?
हाँ सही।
So last slide, let me revisit the last slide. So I were talking about driving factors which might have which influences your transportation systems, and one of the vital components I've been talking about is the technological advancements and how transportation in today's talk we will be talking about carbon emissions, in which transportation plays a big role, or it contributes a lot towards the carbon emission. So after industries, basically, it it is the main contributor of carbon emissions. And then your institution setups. Does the institution has the capacity to regulate the traffic or manage or provide the facilities according to the needs of the citizens? So these are the three pillars, I would say, that drives your transportation systems. So sustainability of your transportation systems. So yes, I was talking about different components, like definition of a transportation system is basically passengers, your logistics, and information. These are your main modes, and it is derived by the volume and frequency and the demand, how much passengers load are needing, and all depends upon the origin and destination. Why people are moving from one place to another, from where they are moving and where they are going, origin destinations, and your linkages and capacities. All of these things, they formulate your transportation systems. This is a transportation system, which it tells you that a road network, for example, let's talk about road network. Who will be moving? Passengers, logistics, this freight movement, or information will be moving on the road. Secondly, what would be the volume of that? Is there roads or have the capacity? Does it have the linkages of does it have linkages of the capacities? Does your road network has the capacity to handle such a volume or not? And where that movement is going, from which place, which road it's choosing, from which point is going, and which from where till it will go and leave the road. So all of these points, or these let's say parts or dimensions, which plays a very vital role in contributing or shaping your transportation system. And these are defined by your infrastructure, your locations and flows. So as a transportation engineer, we are very much concerned towards infrastructures. As a planner, you might be concerned more with locations, and for economists, we are there very much linked with the flows. Our planner also plays a vital role in flows as well. So this part might be constituted towards transportation planning, and this is transportation engineering. Core parts are modes, infrastructures, the networks, and the flows. So what sort of mode are we going to be using it? How much is the capacity of the infrastructure? Does it support these modes? How much are the linkages between the networks? We'll be going to network theory in the coming lectures. And how much flows of movement will be going from one process to another? What would be the direction of these flows? We'll be discussing these separately in the coming lectures. So nowadays, due to this traffic loads, so can we say that if you find a road open or the signals open and you reach home quickly, does it mean that this is happiness in today's modern society? What about safety culture and safe modes? Are our systems safe enough infrastructurally? Are our modes safe enough? So coming back to sustainable, because of the this new sustainable development goals agenda, we are very much focused on whatever type of development we are going to be doing is sustainable development. So what is we call, whereas see it in the terms of sustainable transportation. So what as we talked about that sustainable transportation can be divided to three components of modes, infrastructures, and operations, in which in modes are modes environmental friendly, right? Are they emitting carbon emissions or not, right? In infrastructure, economy, and society. So if we divide sustainable, yeah, like we talked about sustainability as some of the key dimensions are your environment, your economy, and social growth. So all of these will help in social development. What if we constitute is and see it from the eyes of transportation network? So in terms of environmental friendly transportation system, we'll be talking about climate change, noise, air quality, waste produced by this, energy consumed by this. That would be environment. And then economic development is our transportation economic. Does it generate employment? Does it help in financial viability of a different transportation project? Like, is this public transportation financially feasible or not? That is a part of sustainable development. And then comes the society, very much part of urban planning, urban planning's community are very much focused on environment and society. That is it safe enough? Is it health friendly for the health? Does it have equal? Uh, does it have equal access to different stratas of the society? So that can be construed as sustainable transportation. Okay, then let's have a quick review of different. For now, if anyone has any questions regarding introduction to transportation system. If not, then I'll just move into the quick definitions of transportation. So transportation and interdisciplinary field, like different fields are working on it. First is transport planners, urban planners, traffic engineers, urban designers, programmers, legal professionals, and economists. They are one of the very key professionals working on sustainable transportation. So does it mean that transportation is a multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary? Anyone who knows the difference between multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary? Anyone? What is multidisciplinary? What is interdisciplinary? Okay, so multidisciplinary is basically defined as when all of different professionals, they are working together to form a particular solution. Interdisciplinary is basically you are working in your field and you employ the techniques of traffic engineering or transportation planning, and you use those techniques in your own modeling, in your own profession. That is interdisciplinary. So in your opinion, is transportation multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary field?
सर एक दफा रिपीट कर देंगे दोनों.
Okay, multidisciplinary is basically when different disciplines they sit together and they solve a problem. That is multidisciplinary approach. There is interdisciplinary approach. You are a planner, you have a problem, you want to solve it. You cannot solve it by any urban planning method. Then you employ the techniques of transportation planning, transportation engineering, use the same methodologies employed by different disciplines. You use their methodologies or their ideas or concepts in your own field. That is called interdisciplinary approach. I hope I'm clear. So anyone who wants to say that is transportation multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary?
Yes, sir. multidisciplinary, sir.
आपको नजर आ रहा है?
थोड़ा सा डिले से आता है लेकिन आ जाता है. Saifullah, you go ahead first.
So I think it's multidisciplinary, sir.
Okay, great. That's fine. Yes, Alia?
Sir, I guess it's interdisciplinary if we're talking about solving transport-related issues. But if we're making decisions related to transport, then it is a multidisciplinary field.
Yes, that's a very good answer. Yes. So everyone has their own inclination, and that's fine. Even multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary approach, both can resolve a problem. But the question still remains that as a planner or as an engineer, are you open to accept ideas of different other fields as well? That is the question. So using, of course, depending on the problem, multi and disciplinary and interdisciplinary approach can help in resolving the problem. Okay, so that leads us to the definition of transportation planning. It is a methodological process in which we design, like we talk about siting buildings, we talk about how we are going to be designing the facilities and services of different modes. It's a facilitate to integrate the systems with overall regional objectives or your city's objectives. So it's a planning process. You might have gone through it, planning process. So that helps you in transportation system as well. And in this, the process will give you some alternatives to resolve different problems and plans for future needs depending upon the problems identified. So in that context, transportation planning is a part of your transportation systems. The transportation system is a bigger field, or you can say bigger system, and transportation planning is one part of it. So is this transportation planning like you're resolving a different problem? So I think it has 8 or 9 different levels with 28 different ramps in China. This is a Qingkong, I don't know how to pronounce it, John King Junction, I would say. So why transportation planning? Because we have been working on system integration and land use. So transportation planning is one of the biggest linkages between urban planning and transportation. So transportation planning as a field has emerged, which helps you in defining or planning for future needs and giving out different alternatives to the transportation systems. This is a process of what is planning process. It is basically to produce a plan taking into account of different people. And this is basically using some kind of master planning approach. We can also develop transportation master plans. And again, there are different approaches that it should be flexible and we should incorporate in the changing environment, how transportation plays a different vital part. So this is a generic course conceptual framework of transportation planning in which we have some aims and objectives to have a good city networks. We should understand the problems and goals and objectives. And depending on that, we should come up with different options or different alternatives to give out different strategies, maybe long term, maybe short term. And then maybe we can perform some kind of analysis to find out the best strategy available for us to resolve a particular problem. So this is a very generic planning process. If you know about the planning process, then transportation planning process is very much similar to it. So in transportation planning, when we're going to be designing a new transportation plan, we need to understand the socioeconomic land use and economic context. We need to develop vision, acquire information, define goals and objectives, perform analysis, collect the data, evaluate it, and then repeat, because it's a cycle. Then comes into this transport geography, another field in which we are very much focused towards how much on which scale we are working. Are we working on local, regional, or global level? So will be talking about, depending upon the local context, we'll be talking about at which level, city level, district level, or regional. Are we talking about metropolitan area, provincial level, district level? Sorry. So that is regional level. So in this research, I will not be talking about global networks, but I'll be focusing on local and regional scale only. So this is another how different transportation geographies implemented through different fields of studies. So it lies in the periphery of like urban planning, spatial planning, regional planning, and this is a loose kind of spillover of the field of transport geography. It is a part of your transportation systems. So this is another approach to understand some scales of transportation systems, global, regional, and local. So we'll be talking about regional and local only in the coming lectures. What is transportation system? It is, again, what does it mean by system? It means it is composed of different other smaller systems in which helps you define an overlarge comprehensive or holistic phenomena. So that is basically a system. It is a group of interdependent and interrelated components. The key here is interdependent and interrelated components to form a unified or a whole organism that will. So we need to understand what are the components and how they are affecting each other. So that is the whole, you can say, game behind or understanding the concept of transportation systems. So without acknowledging transportation planning or transportation engineering or transport geography, we cannot have a very well-defined transportation system. So it is again a very interdisciplinary field in which different fields are already working in their own context. But for a best transportation system, we need to understand how other disciplines can help you resolve a particular problem. So again, it is a very complex, dynamic, and interconnected systems of a dynamic system, basically. It varies across space and time. It is very chaotic in nature, and it becomes very difficult to understand sometimes because so many different systems that are influencing. And we it's again, does land use influence your transport, or does transport influence your land use, right? So that is another you can say unclear combination, that how much important is land use or the road network is. Okay, then if your human decisions, they are very, this decision making or perceptions, and humans are very complex, and it's very difficult to sometimes analyze that, but it is unpredictable sometimes that what sort of decision humans will make regarding potential transportation alternative. This is again a subparts or subcomponents which helps you enable having a better quality of life in the long run. So this is another contextual information in how different things are influencing your transportation system. My main point on this section is basically we want to be focusing on, there are two different things, engineering and planning. The transport system is composed of two different things, and we need to put a balance between them. So transportation planning is basically, we'll be going into this modeling. This is also called 4-step modelings, demand analysis, in which we calculate the future demand of transportation using 4-step model, that is trip generation, trip distribution, mode choice, and route choice. And again, in the coming lecture, this is just a preliminary understanding that these are the key components in defining your future transportation planning objectives. We will be discussing these in the coming lectures as well, but we will not be focusing on engineering aspect of transportation. Again, this is another way to approach or characterize your transportation system based on your level and the type of board and how we'll be operating it. Some institutional approaches. This is again linkages between transportation planning and transportation engineering. I think we've already gone through it. Okay, so I think I'll stop the lecture now. And do you have any questions? Anyone? Okay, so I'll stop the recording now.